Welcome. We're live. No intro today because I forgot to press the 30-second countdown.
Yeah, fast and loose. That's how we do it without Rob and Jeremy around.
Exactly. No one to keep us on track.
You can't tell us
Rob's
what to do.
yeah, I know. Rob's claiming that he's got poor internet on the wherever he is. Where did he say Shiloh was?
It's in like Arkansas somewhere, so middle
Oh
of
yeah,
nowhere.
I thought he said he was never going back to Arkansas though.
He did say
Or
that actually.
Kansas.
So
Mm,
maybe this is the last time. Maybe his
yeah.
car is intact this time though. I don't know.
Yes. I wonder if he was allowed to take the same car.
Yeah, because that's what was it? 2 times in a row he lost a piece of his car in Arkansas.
Yeah, exactly.
We'll see if he
Um,
lost a third piece.
yeah. Have you been, mate?
Not too bad. As in, busy with work and everything else, taking up
Mm.
all of my energies last couple of weeks. So I haven't had much time for the hobby or the community, unfortunately. So, but kind of getting my life back a little bit these next few weeks.
And you've got a one day coming up, right?
Yeah, March 5th. I was going to
Mhm,
be a 2 day, but then with our lockdown, we kind of
mhm,
decided it just ended a couple weeks ago, so we decided to make it a one day just as a kind of welcome back to regular gaming.
mhm.
And then we're going to do the 2 day in April or May, depending on how the schedule for the game store works out, because they had to reschedule a whole bunch of stuff. So,
Yeah, right. Yeah,
so
it's
we're
been tough. And you think you're out for good this time?
it seems like it. I think mask mandates they're hinting that they'll be lifted at some point in the next month or two
Mm,
as well, and I think capacity is going back up to 100% next month.
okay.
So,
Yeah.
which is good because the gaming space I think was down to 18 people with the current
Mm.
restrictions. So I think with that lifted, I think we can get like 40 or 50 people in there.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Excellent. Yeah. And we've got Lazy Pirate Painting asking where's Rob? Well, Rob said he was going to join us from Arkansas,
Yes.
where he's just won Shiloh, but he's saying the internet's bad, just
Yeah.
like the drivers in Arkansas.
Yeah. So
So,
the headline news: Rob Finuff won Shiloh. Here, you heard it
yes,
here first. 5-0,
indeed.
best general, best overall. Because that
Yep.
he took ogres, right?
Yes, I'm trying to get him to send the list so that if he doesn't come on, we can at least talk about what a
Yeah.
filthmonger he is.
Well, and the
Um,
thing is that he's been painting that list for a while and using that army for a little while, but that he keeps on adding more and more nice pieces to it, like painting wise.
mm,
So it looks great.
yeah. So he obviously got some pretty good paint scores as well. I'm going into our chat. I'm wondering whether he did. It'd probably be too far back for me to find because we were
Oh
also
yeah,
talking about a list for
he had a couple
the
lists that he
Jesse's
was
tournament.
bouncing around, right? But
Mm, yeah,
he
that's
probably
right.
was sticking to something like triple to quintuple siege breakers plus support. I think he he had one list that he had triple bullies, which I thought was pretty good. I think maybe he
Yes.
took. I wonder if he took that one because I know he was painting up a couple.
Yeah. There we go. Five. So what's that? Is that quintuple?
Yes.
Yeah, quintuple. Yeah, quintuple siege breakers.
Yeah.
You know what all the fluffy gamers do.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Just take one unit that's good and just take all of them, as many as you
yeah.
can.
I have a feeling because there was a list where he was taking, was it double Wrangler or one, and we convinced him out of that, not being
Oh yeah,
the.
he was trying to fit a Wrangler or two, and then yeah, we were trying to like there's a crossbow sergeant and the
Yes, crossbow
warlock
sergeant.
and
That's
stuff, and he
right.
was like kind of one
Yeah,
of everything. I
yeah,
think
yeah.
maybe he went to like triple bully, but who I don't know if he actually took that one.
Oh well, if he went 5-0, there's a good chance he did.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
ogres are gross in
Mm,
Cock 22, like in a good way. Like they still I think they still have their counters, but I think they have a couple very strong synergy pieces now with the
mhm,
big deal and the new sergeants. Those are crazy, and then just non-conditional inspiring
mm,
across the board on the warlocks and bullies
mm,
makes two units that were already good very even better.
mm. Thank you, sir. Everything's going well at home. Um, yeah, I mean, ogres are just one of those. I think their strength is it's just whenever I play them or whenever I'm using them, you just get to the end of the game and you're like, oh, there's still all this unit strength. Like you
Yeah.
can feel like you're pounding it. Like I even had this against halflings. Actually, I haven't had them a lot of time, but I've done a couple of play by email games,
Hmm.
and against Dave, one of the locals here, and well, local as in Australia.
Yeah.
And I felt like I was pounding away the halflings, and it got to the end, and
Yeah.
there's just all these like 1 unit strength things left, or
Yes.
something.
Yeah,
It's
they
just
have the troll gunner heroes and then all sorts of stuff like that. And
mm,
it's yeah, like late game, turn 5, 6, trying to account for all of those mobile characters is a bit of a
mm,
nightmare. And they're tricky to hunt down too, right? Because you're
mm,
worrying about like siegebreaker hordes and things that are like big threats.
mm,
And then you have like this, 12, 14, 11, 13 character just kind of hanging around behind a forest that you haven't
mm.
really had a chance to hunt down yet.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that comes down to, doesn't it? You see different people, particularly I think the better players, when we've had them on list builders and things, talk about not necessarily your gross unit strength, but the amount of scoring drops.
Yes,
And that's
absolutely.
the thing about ogres, is that most of the time every drop's a scoring drop.
Hmm. Absolutely.
Mm,
Yeah, I love that. I think I had a rat list like that at the end of well, not at the end, at the beginning of third edition.
mm,
Everything in the army scored.
yeah, yeah,
So it was
yep,
just like everything. There's a lot of unit strength one, and a lot of it was like 8, 10, or
mm,
really low nerve,
mm,
but everything counted at
mm.
all, like all the time.
Yeah, and I think there's a few armies that do that really well.
Hmm.
Ogres being one, halflings can do it, Abyss can do it,
Yeah,
Forces of the Abyss can do it really well with
N-
warlocks and things.
Night Stalkers
Um,
can do it really well, especially
Night Stalkers can do it
with
really
the
well.
butcher, flesh rippers, and then now with the horror rift weavers. Like
Mm,
they have like you could have 6 unit strength 1 support characters that are
mm,
all threats that are a pain to
mm,
deal with, and it just yeah.
yeah. Mm. And we had a couple of comments from Jay. Yeah, people. I
Yes.
think Jay, it's the speed. The speed and the nimble, and just
Yeah.
being able to face flanks, and then they've got more attacks than you think they should have, and
Yeah, what is it, 8
yeah,
attacks? It's like they're like mini dragons. Everyone
yeah,
complains about Lords on Frostfangs, but wow, like dualies for points.
yeah. Yeah, yeah, exactly. And so Dave's, who had just started up again in his latest halfling list at
Mm.
2,000 points, that's unit
Oh
strength
man,
27.
that's like yeah, that's like you know what? I don't know if it's we were like what into year 3 of third edition, but I feel like my brain is still calibrated a little bit to second edition unit strength values. I think unit strength all kind of came down a little bit on most
Mm,
lists by a few, it seems like. But yeah, so 27 at 2,000 is quite
mm,
a lot. Like, so I think the most I ever had with rats, even in second, was 34 at
mm,
2,300.
yep, yeah,
So
yeah. And I think that's the thing about, the support. I haven't listened to the episode of the guys talking 2,000, 2,300, but
yeah,
that is the hard thing about the guys, that the armies that can do trash at 2,000, isn't it? It's
yes,
hard. It's hard to then put enough on the table to get through it.
I think
Um,
at 2,000 you have that. It's a bit
there's a little bit of an
dichotomous.
advantage to trash meta at
Trash,
2,000.
and I think trash and alpha. I paradoxically, because I think there's a bunch of armies in the middle that have trouble dealing with either one at
Mm,
2,000. And I think
yep,
there's a couple armies that do trash really well, and there's a few armies that do alpha really well, and then everything else is kind of left out at
yep,
2,000 points. It's just like
yep.
they have trouble dealing with either or both. They have trouble dealing with both at the same time, right? On
Mm,
this in the same weekend with one
yep.
list.
Yeah, what I've been finding, and I've just been finding, looking at all the men variations with my Dragon Empire. It's
Hmm.
interesting. I think different armies do different things at the different points level. Like, I think for me, base
Right.
Salia, the more I've been looking for it, you can't really build a balanced list at 2,000, as in an all comers list.
No.
Sorry, not a
Well,
balanced list. You can do a nice balance, but not
yeah.
an all comers list. Um,
You're gonna have to like realize you're leaving a weakness
mm,
as like for something, right? And you're gonna have to play your meta a little bit with them.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. Um, and you've been playing in Call to Arms.
I
How many
have
rounds are we through now?
we're in round 4 right now, so
Hmm.
halfway through. Um, I'm
Where
two
are you
and one.
sitting? Are they using tabletop TO?
Yeah, I'm at 30 something. I think it's mid round right now, so I
Mm.
think the standings are a little bit skewy. But I think I was like table 16 or 17, so it's mid
Yeah, all right.
30s, low 30s.
I might I'll log into tabletop and Bring up a. Have you been changing armies? Are you running
I
what you want to put on the table? What are you doing?
well, it was kind of I switched from Rordia just because I ran them in two or three
Mm,
tournaments last year in on tabletop TO or sorry in UB, and I just kind of wanted to switch it up. And it my proxy brain kept on going, and I was just thinking like what else I could use my
mm,
army as, and I was like Northern Alliance seemed interesting because I had started second or third edition with Northern Alliance and then sold it off, and then I was like, well, my honor guard are kind of like they're giant wolves and stuff, so they're kind of Frost Fang more like
yep.
than just pure dogs. So I was thinking, how can I do a Frost Fang list? So it's a little bit of a Cock 22 like spammy list where it's double Frostfang hordes with some Icekin hunters and Frostfang lords, and then just I've been kind of moving some of the support pieces around just to try and see how that list works. Because
Mm,
I going into or coming out of Cock 22, I was like Gladestalkers, and they're like that the Gladestalker archetype was going to be super strong. So I kind of wanted to play a bunch of games with them to see how they played. And, to understand your enemy, you gotta wear their
mm.
shoes or something.
And what do you think then after playing that? So like, there's been a lot of talk of the
Yeah.
Stalker archetype, and like I do think you're seeing them in more armies, but
Yes,
I
I think they're
don't think you're
definitely very
necessarily
good.
seeing them spammed.
No, I went to 4 regiments last game, and I
Mm,
think that was too many. Or in my second or third game, I had 4 for one game, and I was like, it felt like it wasn't. It took away from the rest of the list. So 3 regiments, I feel like is solid, and like you're gonna
mm,
get your value out of them, especially with in the Northern Alliance list. The frozen rule really helps. Like it has probably played a role in most of my games. I didn't think it would. Like I
mm.
didn't think it was
In
going to be
terms of
that
allowing you to
important.
position, so you
Yeah,
you can basically get within that inch for you, and then pip them with frozen, and they
right.
can't get
Or
to
if
you.
someone
Yeah,
like gets just in, and they're like
yeah,
they don't take it into account, I can freeze them, and
yeah,
then they're just out. Or
yeah.
you know, I can freeze a unit, and I had one game where I froze a, a horde or legion again in Night Stalkers, and it slowed them down. It was like the Bloodworms. I think they're speed 5, and it slowed them down
Mm,
to speed 4, so they couldn't. I could just reposition my Frostfang horde just safely.
mm.
So it's just small things, but then they add up over the course of the game.
Mm. And look, and that's what I'm really loving about third, honestly,
Yeah.
is that you have that opportunity for more synergies.
Hmm.
Um, but they're not like they're synergies that aren't going to catch you out every time. Sure, you
Yeah.
might be caught out by them once, right?
Yeah.
And then if you're caught out of them by again, it's more shame on you, right? It's
Yeah.
not like it's something you shouldn't see coming.
Yeah. And like
Um, mm,
I think with speaking of synergy, like the Abbotshire, like the spell word banner
mm,
goes really well with them because you throw 2 or 3 regiments in a forest with spell ward and cover,
yeah,
and that really mitigates their big weakness, which is lightning bolt.
yeah, yep,
Um, and
yeah,
then the was it the orb of towering presence is fun because you get a unit strength 4 regiment that no one really wants to deal with.
mm,
Like some armies just are going to have trouble getting into threat range of them
mm,
if you position them properly. So they're good for like pillage and table quarters and stuff like that. So,
mm.
but yeah.
Yeah, and so I think Jay's saying, similar things along your lines, 2 regiments. I found a similar thing with heart piercers at the lower points of
Hmm.
Trident Realms. Like I felt like, 2 was good, but 3 was too many. At that point,
Yeah.
percentage wise, you're investing too much in one strategy.
Yeah.
And I think if that was to become the meta, it would get adjusted pretty quickly, right?
Yeah.
People
Like
would go back
defense
to the
three
old
is
one.
a
Yeah.
big problem. I think speaking of called arms, Jonathan Quayle faced off against, I think his name's Matt Griffin, one of the Nerdhammer guys. He
Hmm.
won um with the Nerdhammer GT in the fall with Sylvankin with
Mm,
like 3 regiments and 2 troops of
mm,
Gladestalkers. And then they got better because that was just before Cock
yeah.
22. And
Yep.
he was facing Jonathan Quayle's Night Stalkers in the current round. They just had the game on the weekend, and I think John won. Like they stuck, but the defense 3 is like the big, like the big problem with them
Mm,
because lightning bolt just if you're not in cover or even if you are like they they just melt. Any damage, any hits that get through, they just melt.
Yeah,
So
it won't take a lot to counter them. So
no,
I think if they become pervasive, they might for a short period of time. Then
yeah,
someone will bring a counter to it and gone. They'll be gone again.
yeah. And then
Is our man Billy? What's up,
what's up,
Billy?
Billy?
Mm,
What was I gonna say? Oh yeah, actually, the funny thing is, like, off most games, like I've had 3 games with them now. 2 against Night Stalkers. Both those are my 2 wins against Night
mm,
Stalkers. I lost against my buddy Jesse's Ogres in round 3.
mm,
That was a pretty close game. But
mm,
uh, you'll I a lot of times I'll get like 2 rounds of shooting out of them, and then they start having to punch things, and then you get
mm.
like melee 3 elite
Yeah,
really comes into its own, and you're like, it's kind of hilarious because you're like,
yeah.
you advance them up onto a hill, and then you shoot for a couple turns, and then you charge
Mm,
12, which is always like movement 6 infantry. This is like something I've always noticed with rats is like it catches people out.
mm.
So like
Oh, totally.
they
Yeah.
don't think like 12 inches, like 12-inch threat range for an infantry regiment is a lot bigger than people think.
Mm,
And so they get caught, and they get 12 or 24 on threes with elite with
mm.
thunderous charge 1, and it adds up, and they've done some work in close combat. It's actually really
Oh,
funny.
I've been smacked by them in combat a couple of times
Yeah,
where I've just gone, no, they should take a charge, and then I'm like, it's afterwards. I'm like, fuck, they've changed.
yeah,
It's
you
like,
get you end up getting like 10 or 11 hits because you're rerolling all your ones, and then you're just like, it adds up. It's quite they're quite versatile. Like they die once they start getting hit, but their
mm.
offensive output is like pretty consistent through the whole game.
Yeah, and I think that's where the real money is too, because you
Yeah,
then, if there's multiple regiments together, you don't necessarily want to rush them, do you, as
yeah,
the opponent? So,
right.
because you know that if you get within range, as you said, 12 inches,
Hmm.
that's, um,
Yeah,
there's a chance that you're going to die regardless. It'll just
right.
be the melee instead of shooting.
Yeah, and they got Pathfinder, so they're like they're very, very versatile, which I like. And I think they're a good balance, like we're saying. Like they have a good output, but they don't want you to look at them,
Mm.
at all.
Yeah,
They're
yeah.
like so which helps sometimes with the army, with having Frostfangs and Frostfang Lords helps distract people from attacking them, which is
Mm,
kind of the theme of the army. But this current army is nice because it's definitely a positioning army,
mm,
which I'm in a different way than my Rordia was. So there's
mm.
a lot less chaff in it.
I'll bring up the leaderboard currently.
Yeah.
There we go. Beautiful.
Hmm.
And as you said, it's mid-round, so it's a little bit out. So where did you think you're
I
bottom dwelling
was
somewhere? So if you play,
30th, but now I'm probably like 40 or 50th because I haven't played yet.
oh, you haven't played yet, right?
Yeah.
But if we click on you, yeah. So you
Yeah, 30.
play
Yeah, 52.
on
Yeah.
DDR, yep. Then Brian Luttrell, and then Jesse beat you in round 3.
Yeah.
Okay.
That was a pretty
So
close. It
mm,
it's like one of those games where like we both felt like we were gonna lose for until till the very end.
yeah,
Then it ended up being not very close. I'm
yeah.
matched up against Pete Fry, who's a West Coast guy that I'm not familiar with.
Hmm.
Seems really nice so far in the chats we've had, and he's beat some good players. Like he beat Justin Gigsby Clark, who's a UK player who's pretty good, and then Bart
Mm,
Kohler from the Mid Atlantic.
mm. Well, if we
So
look at the top, there's a few usual suspects there.
yeah,
Oh, Adam Padley's up there. He hasn't done anything since what, Cock 2018 or something. So
yeah, it's been a couple of yeah, maybe a decade or so since he's been relevant. No, thanks Adam
uh,
for running the tournament. You're the best. Um, yeah, Jonathan Quayle, like I said, he won, and Sergey, he's been on a tear lately. He beat me
yeah,
in the quintessentially Quayle Cup, avenging his
yeah. And
loss.
Sergey's the Russian guy, isn't he?
Yeah, he won.
Yeah.
He ran the Lords of the North team tournament last summer,
Ah, okay.
and
Oh, that's right.
I played him. I don't know if I don't think it was the last Cult Arms. I think it was in Steve Forster's It's Always Sunny in Panathor 2.
Hmm.
I played him. He's been playing. I don't know what he's playing right now. I think he might be playing Halflings. No,
Hmm.
or Forces of Nature.
Okay.
But
Yeah, well, he's taken some scalps. I'm pretty sure Ian Wood
yeah,
will be Ian from Australia, who was, I think, in the top 3 for Clash of Kings last year.
yeah,
Mike Smith, Mike Zettelmeyer, of course.
Yeah, and
I don't know
Morton did
Morton.
well. He was doing quite well, and then he had a pretty good showing last year in one of the UB tournaments as
Mm,
well. So
mm.
yeah,
I
he's
love
been,
this actually over here. Sergei's club is Russia.
yeah, his brother too.
We
It's
don't
fun.
have clubs in Russia. We just have Russia.
His brother Eugene's in the tournament as well, and they both use the same UB account. So yeah, it's just Russia's UB account.
Do you know what Sergei's been playing?
I think it was, um, I think it's been Forces of Nature, but it might have been Halflings because I think I thought I saw his brother using his Forces of Nature list, so I'm not
Mm,
100% sure right now.
mm. But there's a few different names. Like so, all of this, like there's a few names that you know around, but it's good to see a few different names up there. Like
Yeah,
I wouldn't. How many rounds are there this time? Five or six?
it's six. Yeah, so yeah, there's definitely some new ones. We have like the old standbys, like Jonathan Quayle, Luis Serra, Adam, and
Mm,
then you got Ray Shields is up there, Jesse and Ben.
mm,
Richard Laking did well last time too, but we got some new names, which is good. I think there's a lot more. I'm going to say international because they're not from North America or the UK, but like a lot of other
mm,
European players in
mm.
this round, which I think is awesome to see the community growing across like everywhere, not just
Yep.
in the places it's established. So I think the UB tournaments have been good because I was talking to a couple of people last week, and it definitely seems like Europe is more engaged for this one.
Yes. Yep. Yeah, it looks like that. I think Europe has been coming like I mean certainly with the Spaniards and things they've
Yeah.
been enjoying a lot of UB, haven't they?
hmm Spain is
Yep.
huge. I think there's some Germans too, which is awesome. And then we
Yep.
have Russia, and that's cool. Although I guess Russia's not
Page.
technically Europe, but
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah. Yeah. Is Page playing in this tournament? No.
I feel like we were. I no, I think he is because I was really. We were
Oh
both
yeah,
really close in round three. So I
there
was.
he is.
I think we were
40th.
tied. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Currently we're tied. So maybe next
Yeah.
round,
Okay.
Paige, if you win and I win, you and me,
Yeah. Oh, he
longest
might.
game in UB history. Let's do it. No
Have
clocks.
they instituted clocks?
Yeah, I think it's a
Yeah.
70-minute clock
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
recommended, which is
Recommended.
helpful. I like it. It makes
Mm,
me think a little faster too because I just like I've said before, I take way too long if I don't have any pressure
mm.
or time pressure. If it's social pressure, I can ignore it, but time pressure,
Yeah. Yeah. Well, or our harassing of you never changed you until o'clock.
no. Because I know
Oh,
you guys are gonna love me no matter what.
yeah, yeah, exactly. It's unconditional, our love.
Yes,
Um, how much have you looked into the variation? Like I know you've got at some point the long-awaited Kingdoms of Men review.
yes.
Um, but how much have you looked into the various human factions?
I look pretty. When Clash of Kings 22 launched, I took a long hard look because Um, I've been working on the Cult of the Raven
Mm,
as this, huge, just monumental project that is never ending. So I'm always going through it as what it could be.
mm,
So like, I looked at I like both of the Order of the Brother, like the Order of the Brother Mark and Order of the Green Lady. I looked
mm,
really hard at those. I've Cla- League of Rordia and Kingdoms of Men I've been looking at pretty consistently and using
mm.
pretty consistently. But
Yeah, well, I reckon it might be worth like if we just have a little discussion about what
yeah,
we think each of the ones do best, because
that's a
I
good
don't think
idea.
because I don't think they all kind of suit every play style. Um,
They definitely have their own bent on how they work.
yeah, so I reckon if we start with Basalia,
hmm
I don't think they do mixed arms very well.
Yeah, they can't shoot very effectively. Like
No,
the
so
war engines are kind of garbage
they are
or over.
garbage. They've only got the Arbalest, really.
Yeah.
Yep.
They have the one mage. You can give a war wizard with boomstick, although boomstick sucks now. So
Yeah.
that guy isn't as good. Like I used to like, the War Wizard on horse with boomstick was pretty
Mm,
good because you got lightning bolt 7, and
mm.
so that was pretty nice. But the
The
Sisterhood
priest
Scout, Oh,
Yeah,
sorry. The priest is just better in a lot of cases for
exactly.
most builds.
Mm,
Sisterhood scouts are okay, but when you look at glade stalkers and you look at Sisterhood scouts, you're just like that what? Like
yeah.
they make no sense.
No, well, interesting. The thing was, is they at some point weren't going to get the attack buff, but we managed
Oh
to
wow.
push that. We managed to push that through with a bit of last minute play
Yeah.
testing because we're like, these guys just aren't good enough.
But the 15
Um,
points for glade stalkers gets you so much.
mm, yeah,
It's just
yeah,
like not to say that Sisterhood scouts are useless. They're just not.
mm,
Like glade stalkers, like we were talking about, are very good, but they're limited and they have their weaknesses. And then you have Sisterhood scouts that are almost the same price and aren't as good with the same weaknesses.
yeah, yeah. So I think the real power of that list is alpha.
Mm-hmm.
I think it can do grind with heal backup, but it doesn't do it as well as say like ogres.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say that their primary play style has to be alpha to be successful.
Absolutely. Well, yeah, you have a low height, which with the new upgrade are pretty great.
Mm.
Um,
Especially take some knights like in that list from Clash of Kings Australia.
yes, yep,
Double them
absolutely.
up. Mm.
Double them up or double ogre palace guard are always a good option, especially with like the priest backing them up.
Yep.
So you can have that kind of mid-speed alpha, that kind of like Soul Reaver
Mm.
alpha, where it's like beta alpha,
Mm.
and
Mm.
then but yeah, having speed 10 fearless, regiments of Alohi, so you can, and then with Gur Panthers as well, so that are also
Mm.
speed 10, you have two really great, like opposite ends of the chaff spectrum, but they're
Mm.
both speed 10.
Mm.
One super cheap and like squishy, and the other one is defense 5 and fearless with dash 14, dash 15. So that's
You
huge.
got the thick and the thin.
Yes, exactly. And they're both speed 10, which is just like, I, and then you just put sharpness and elite on your crush 2 hordes of a
Mm.
low high, and you know paladin knights are good. Like they're not they're not as good as the brother mark knights or some mounted sons of Korgon or something like that,
No.
but they're still good. They're durable and they're 15-17, which I think when we're talking about other human factions like Rodian Kingdoms of Men, where their knights are 14-16, like that makes a big difference, especially when you have Iron Resolve.
Mm.
They're
Yeah,
like
yeah, totally.
mini mobile anvils that can hit you if you
Yeah.
let them.
And I certainly think uh, before changes, I would have said average, but if combined with a low high, very good. If
Yes.
not, if not some of the best Cav.
Yeah. Well, you can
Yeah.
just create so many angles because then you have Urlohai, Julius, Samacris. If you
Mm.
want to add the dragon, you don't even need to. Like they have
Mm.
so many good. We were talking about ogres and their characters, right?
Mm.
If you want to like load up on the unit strength 1 characters in Basile, I'm gonna say it
Mm.
wrong, like Jeremy does. The
Azalea.
Basileans, like they can do ogre palace guard captains. They can do Urlohai. It's you can drop 6 if you really want, like
Mm.
unit strength 1 characters that are going to give your opponent headaches, and they're going to get flanks.
Mm. Yep, absolutely. All right, so we agree on that. Which one next? Brother Mark?
Brother Mark. So they're
Yeah.
kind of like the people's Basilia, right?
Mm. Yeah,
They
yeah.
got penitence. I think the change to penitence makes Brother Mark really interesting, along
Yes.
with the monster hunters, because now you have 2 very tempting, high nerve and somewhat combat effective infantry hordes, right?
Yep.
So you have
Yep.
like conditional vicious and fury on your monster hunters. You have insane nerve block and a legion of penitence with crushing 1.
Mm. Yeah, so I think overall they grind a little less well than Basilia
Mm-hmm.
because you don't have access to the heal
Mm-hmm.
as much.
Right.
But they certainly can still alpha, particularly with those. I think as base knights,
Yeah.
the base knights are some of the with if you don't include anything else, they're some of the best because they got crushing one.
Yeah. Oh yeah. The
And
Abyssal Hunt
vicious.
Knights are
Yeah.
probably one of the better knights in the game,
Yep.
especially for their points.
Yeah. So I
And,
think they still alpha, but I prefer this list to Basileia because you can do mixed arms.
mm-hmm. They
Yeah.
have very nicely priced effective war engines. So you can
Mm,
take 3 siege artillery. I think they're 90 points each.
hmm
So you have pretty, pseudo cannons with indirect. So they're, they have the 12-inch no go range, but
mm,
you place them correctly. Like that's a good threat. And I think, I have put this to good use over the years. Like the triple war engines with an alpha list is a tried and true archetype. Like
mm,
it's enough to put pressure on your opponent and either remove a hammer or put wounds on targets or just prevent them from castling too much,
mm.
and they're going to take risks and they're going to overextend or try to you know attack your war engine, so you're going to have it's going to give you more angles for your alpha. And I think Brother Mark really can play that style effectively.
Yeah, and I think even their regiments of archers, they're 90
Hmm. Oh
points.
yeah, that's the
Yeah,
other. Yeah, they have
and
very good archers for their
and their
price.
phalanx.
Yes, so they're a
Yes.
huge pain to deal with. You put them in cover, or I guess you get phalanx in cover, don't stack. But
Yeah, I'm playing in that halfling game. I'm playing with 3 regiments of archers and 2 um artillery,
hmm,
and seeing how that goes.
yeah,
Just out of interest, because I think, yeah, I think they do a really effective mixed
yeah.
arms.
Yeah, Paige says the Bromark formation is really good. I think it can be really good. Like obviously having, what is it, brutal and cloak of death on a dragon is massive. Like that
Yeah.
is the best dragon in the game at that point,
Mm,
because that's like a 14 attack, 14 and a half attack dragon essentially. So he's better than
mm,
Scud, which is
mm,
like who's my bro. So it's like it hurts to
mm.
say that, but I think he's better. And then adding brutal to your knights is never going to be a problem, right?
No,
It's just 50 points, and you have to, it's a lot of taking the dragon and 2 knight regiments of knights when you could be taking Abyssal Hunt.
I don't think you can take it below 2300.
Yeah, it was 800 points or something like that, or
Yeah, yeah,
700 something
yeah.
points.
Yeah. I mean, you could probably could if you were prepared to make the rest of
Oh,
your
I know.
list
Oh, yeah, the math
tough.
works,
But
but it's just like, yeah,
yeah,
you are making a sacrifice at
yeah,
2,000
yeah, yeah.
for sure.
Well, and if you come up across one of those,
Trash
triple
list.
artillery lists or something, and they take off a unit of your knights straight away, then
Yeah,
you're being hit more heavily.
yeah. Like that's the thing, like we were saying, at 2,000 points, if that list comes up against goblins or halflings with like 30 unit strength and artillery, that's a
Mm,
bad day.
mm. So if Alpha is Basileas, uh, best play style. What do you think the best play style of Brother Mark is?
I think it's kind of this, like we were saying, like that mixed
Yeah,
alpha. I
I
think
agree. Mm,
I think I think Basilea, like straight up Basileans, have to really go into that alpha
mm,
all in,
mm,
right? And so it's going to be
mm,
a lot of maneuver and trying to outflank and just outrange. And then with Bromark, you're kind of like you're going to be applying pressure with your shooting, or
mm.
just with your like Paige was saying just here, like the penitents, like just you have 1 or 2 legions of penitents, and it's just like there's no easy way to deal with that,
No,
right?
no.
Like there are ways to deal with it. You throw like reapers or soul reavers or something with a huge number of melee 3 crush 1 attacks into it, it'll dissolve. But it's like you have to, it's a shitty unit, but you have to put significant resources into dealing with it, and I
Well,
think that puts a
you're
different kind
risking
of
snakes,
pressure.
aren't you?
Yeah,
Like
exactly.
every time you're risking snakes. So
Yeah,
like you got to put some heavy lifting into it
yeah,
and
and
risk
then was
being
it the
left in the cold.
chaplain, and then they have the guy, the lead from the front guy who gives them rally, and
Mm,
the Augustus and stuff like that. So I think Bromark puts more pressure. Like they're not as fast, so they put a different kind of pressure on your opponent. So you have the shooting, and just like you have the big blocks that have to be dealt with that you don't have as much in
yeah.
Basileia.
I don't think it's been, and this is part of the thing about third for me is because this cock was such a big change.
Hmm.
I don't think like the meta's been worked out. But my gut feeling is that Brother Mark went from the worst human faction
Hmm.
probably to ballpark the best.
I think. Well, yeah, it's tough to say for the best. I want to use it a little bit. I have not. I have not got many games in since Clash of Kings came out. Like
Mm,
I think I've only got like 5 or 6 really. Like I have my 3 Call to Arms games and like 2 or 3 in person.
mm,
I guess,
I think no
but
one's really built for Brother Mark yet, and so we
yeah,
haven't really seen it.
but
Um,
everyone was really hot and bothered about Green Lady, but I think Brother Mark kind of snuck under the radar. I agree.
yeah, yeah, and I reckon we might see it start to rise up a little bit.
Hmm. I
Yeah,
think it's
you
one of those.
probably,
Oh, sorry.
yeah,
Go ahead.
sorry. I was going to say, I don't think with some of the types, if you're looking at it from a fluff perspective, you probably don't get as much flexibility with how your units look. But
Yeah.
yeah, I reckon it's a bloody good list.
Yeah. Jefferson says Brother Mark was just an afterthought precock. It was kind of just like
It was
most.
like a lot of the theme lists.
Yeah, like Order of the Green Lady was like the real Brotherhood continuation, and Brother Mark was just kind of like, well, okay, and this thing,
Yep.
and then and yeah, it was pointless almost.
But
But
now they have
yeah,
a massively unique identity compared to Green Lady, don't they?
I think
Yeah,
so. I think so,
yeah.
and
Well,
I
yeah,
think it's I was just to your point. I think it's just one of those lists that's really going to be one of the ones where it's a high skill cap. Like
yeah.
there's a lot of room to grow with practice with that army.
I agree
Yeah,
totally. So why don't we talk about Green Lady then?
yeah. So
You've probably played more Green Lady than I have, I
I
think.
haven't. I actually haven't played any.
Mm,
So, and
mm,
it was on my list. I have my gaming life has been minimal the last since November, October. So,
mm.
but I've theory hammered a lot about Green Lady more than the other
Have you?
non-Rordia.
Yeah,
Yeah,
see, that's interesting. So to me, since Clash of Kings, they've almost become the least interesting for me, and I don't know why.
yeah,
Um, Probably because not like with the Dragon Empire, a lot of them, it's not as easy to build for Green Lady as it is for some of the others
yeah.
in terms of the model type.
Okay, yeah.
That's probably the reason why. But yeah, I used to be hot on them big time.
Oh yeah,
I
that's our first game
Yeah,
back
yeah,
in the
yeah,
day
yeah.
when I won
Dismembered me.
title of most attractive countercharge host.
Yeah, yeah. I um I I do love their night hordes. Because you can get the free banner
Right.
of Pathfinder base. Well, not free, but you
Yeah.
can get the banner of Pathfinder and then take Pathfinder. Um, yeah, Paige is probably right.
What did he
Yeah.
say?
So Paige has said, Green Lady at first look feels like it's doing the same thing. That might be why. And I agree. I don't think for me it changed enough in that Clash of Kings to get me more excited, where I
Yeah.
got more excited about the other
Yeah, I think well,
things.
like we were saying, I think it had an identity in
Mm,
more so than Brother Mark did already, like an
mm,
established kind of play style or you know approach or theme. It had a
mm,
theme as a theme list, um, but I think it does it more now. Maybe
mm,
it's just like leaned into it. I think the living legend character is good. Like he's a nice little touch. I know it's kind of like people are like, oh, it's just more Warhammer fantasy pandering, Bretonian pandering, but I think it's a good character for them, just because
yeah.
the Redeemers are a little odd. I don't love
Mm,
some of the units, but I really like some of the stuff in the army. So I think play style wise, they do. This is going to sound very just we're like repeating ourselves, but or that
mm,
I'm repeating myself, but they kind of bridge that gap of alpha and mixed arms
mm,
because they don't have war engines, but they have heart piercers and lightning bolt. Very
mm,
like, a lot of lightning bolt, and then heart piercers are great.
mm,
So it's different kind of shooting than war engines, and then they have a different kind of alpha than Basileans because they have for Order of the Forsaken and Order of Redemption, right? Which
mm.
are both much better with CS1. Like
Yeah,
CS1, TC1 is worlds better
yep,
than TC2, right?
yep. And
Oh, there he
yeah,
goes.
Paige was
Paige
basically
agrees.
saying what you were saying. Yeah. And plus best flying chaff in the game.
Yeah, you got Pegasi,
Yeah.
which are huge. You have Beasts of Nature and like Redeemers are 13, 15, which is like not great, but they have regen and headstrong, so it's kind of like sort of balanced. But I think you're taking Beasts of Nature and Pegasi and Unicorns
Mm.
first for most cases.
Yeah, it's interesting what you say about some people talking about the pandering to Warhammer and Bretonia. I don't think that about Bretonia necessarily. Like I think this game needs more characters like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they need their characters to reflect the fluff. I've said it on the podcast before.
Right.
For me, Mikael is the best written character in the game
Yep.
because he's a baller. He's
Yes.
not OP. He's still expensive,
Yeah.
but you read his
Well,
special rules and it fits his fluff.
yeah.
Whereas,
He's not
where
he's not OP without host Shadow Beast
yeah,
around.
true. Yeah, yeah, true. I mean, that's an easy amendment too, though, right? Shadow
Yeah, I
Beast
just think
can't
we
kill
I think Host
something.
Shadow Beast should just be
Yeah,
removed. I think it was a mistake.
yeah.
But that's
Um, yeah, it looked worse. I'll tell you. Um,
yeah, I've heard, but I'm just like
yeah.
I don't think it does what people they wanted it to, or I think it only helps things that are already very good, which I think
Yeah.
is a which is you don't want special rules or spells to buff good things. That's like we're like the Soul Reaver and Alohi formations from Clash of Kings 19, right?
Mm.
They made good units even better. Host
Yeah.
Shadow Beast only makes good units better. It doesn't really make medium or bad units good
Yeah,
enough.
you're not going to take it to cast on a 3 attack something, right?
No, it's like
Yeah.
you got Mikael, Vampire Lords, you have Grody Snark, you have problem characters that are already exist getting
Mm.
better.
Yeah. Yeah. But I would like Paige is saying that he's taking Green Lady now for some grindy games. So I think
Mm-hmm.
but to me, the Green Lady, she's not bad, but she's just not as iconic as she
She's
should be.
she's boring. You know who's
Yeah.
better, more characterful is the elf one, Nimue or Nimue,
Yeah.
right? They have like it's a more interesting character.
Mm,
I think the
totally.
green or Avatar of the Green Lady is an incredibly boring character rules wise. It's like
Yeah.
you do this or this, and you have heal. Woo!
I don't know why she ever had her heal 8 taken away. Like I like to me that immediately makes her more flavorful, full, right?
Yeah,
I heal more at that point than basically anything in the game.
right.
Um, yeah, but so I think what they do well is they do alpha and grind.
Yeah, well, yeah, because he now, and I know Paige will disagree with me, but which is fine. Everyone's allowed to be wrong.
Yeah.
The formation is very cool, and I think
Well,
it's.
Todd Serpico agrees with you.
I know that hurts, but I have to agree with Todd on that one. But I also just think separate from the formation, I just think greater water elementals in Green Lady with their Radiance of Life upgrade are like phenomenal.
Mm. Yeah,
Like
regen plus radiance of life.
yeah, regen 4 up with Radiance
Mm.
of Life on a fearless -18 defense 5 50 mil monster is just like I'm in love. Like I
Mm.
have that's like I bought a bunch of bog monsters from Mersha specifically because I like the greater water elementals in Green Lady.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, add those guys in.
I
Bog
think that
boys for life.
Yeah, I think that also plays into meta too, right? And the
Yeah.
different points values. Like someone did a Facebook post about it, and it seems more commonly the 2300s in the States and Europe and Australia, sorry, UK and Australia, the 2000. Um, but at that 2000 point level again,
Yeah.
I find them very expensive for what they
Mm-hmm.
do. Yeah,
Okay, that's fair.
but I'd be more inclined to take them at 2300. So I think
Mm-hmm.
it like depending what you're used to playing also
Yeah.
comes into that.
Yeah, I know he's melee 4, and Paige is like heal with earth elementals is even better.
Oh yeah,
But
yeah.
I
But
know
again, you got a negative in terms of a Titan base on a greater Earth elemental.
yes,
You
absolutely.
know.
And
Mm,
slower.
mm,
He's only melee 4, but I compare him mentally to the mutant rat fiend, who's just like again regen 5 up with Radiance of Life, fearless
mm,
18, obviously with rally around, usually fearless 20. But like that guy out overperforms all the time. So like again,
mm,
this is all theory hammer for me. My Green Lady is just an idea. Green Lady
mm,
list is just an idea, but I love the idea of the greater water elemental with Radiance of Life.
mm. Yeah. No, I can. In a theory hammer world, I can totally get that for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. The thing will also be is whether you're competing for monster slots.
That's true because you have Pegasi, which are they're gonna
Pegasi,
yeah,
yeah,
great
most
beasts of nature.
beasts of nature. Yeah.
I think that's the one thing with Green Lady, you run out of unlocks. Although with
They,
the
they
new
don't have
order
big ones.
Order Forsaken are now regular, which is huge,
Mm,
because that helps you with unlocks quite a bit. But yeah,
yeah.
it's tricky to get the right number of monster and hero unlocks with Green Lady.
Yeah, yeah. You don't get the you don't get the 90-point regiment of foot stuff
No.
to unlock stuff for you, where you can just drop two in. Doesn't matter what they do, they've unlocked the good stuff.
Yeah.
You
Well,
know.
yeah. Paige is talking about Earth Elemental hordes and regiments. Yeah,
Mm,
regiments of Earth Elementals are this neat value proposition where it's like they're such a pain to deal with if you don't have the exact right tool, like
mm.
that nerve point in Fearless Defense
I
Six
love
with
regiments.
with heal. It's just now you're and the thing is like Paige has been playing Green Lady for ages, which is awesome. So he's like kind of getting that mixed arms approach down, but it's a tricky one for newer players to deal with cavalry and earth elementals at the same time.
Mm, mm,
So it's tricky. But I think if you want to play that, hammer anvil kind of style,
mm.
they can really do it very well.
Absolutely. No, that's a really good point. So then we've got roughly about 15 minutes left.
Mm-hmm.
So what should we do next, Rorty or men? Have a
I'll
quick chat
do
about.
Rordia, more specific.
Yep.
Yeah, I
Yep.
think. Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say again, very powerful mixed arms build. I mean,
Yes.
you've seen what Tom Robinson can do with them. You
Yeah.
play them really well. They have the right kind of alpha tools, cheap unlocks,
Mm-hmm.
and then lots of varied shooting as well.
Yes. Well, that's the
Yeah,
thing. Like you look at the Tom Robinson build, and it has three war engines, three volley guns. I usually use three
cheap.
cannons.
Mm,
Both are cheap. You have 2 to 3 wizards with lightning bolt, so three more sources of shooting that are cheap,
mm.
often with
And
unit
you can
strength.
stick them on a peg, yeah,
Yeah,
for
at
unit
least two
strength.
of them are on Pegasi, so they have unit
Mm,
strength. Then you have some mounted scouts. Sorry, my dog is freaking out. If anyone can hear that,
oh, I can't hear it at all.
perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah, then you have a couple of units of mounted scouts, and people always forget that they shoot and have melee 4.
Mm,
So,
yeah.
um, so you have 8 units that are shooting at you,
Yeah.
and 4 or 5 of those are good chaff at the same time.
Mm.
And then you have honor guard, which are one of the better hammers in the game. I miss them having 24 attacks, but they're still very good at 18.
Yeah, I bet you bloody do.
And then then pages like the battle shrines. So yeah, you have
Yeah, yeah.
another lightning bolt source with unit strength that also 6 attacks with CS1 melee 4. So don't let it get in your flank. There's a lot. So it is not 2 hordes of archers or 2 or 3 regiments of gladestalkers you have to shut down. It's
Mm.
7 or 8 separate plinking units that if they
Most of
all
which are
go.
mobile.
Yes. So
Yeah.
or 3 of which are blocking off part of the battlefield that you want to get to, and you won't be able to get to for at least 2 turns, right?
Mm.
So you and yeah, like I said, chaff. So those wizards and mounted scouts are phenomenal chaff because they're cheap and fast and nimble.
Yeah. It's interesting that I think it's Steve, isn't it? Lazy Pirate. Um, I think this is exactly what I was about to say. He read my mind.
Yeah.
Is that unfortunately, I think because of the halfling connection, they're probably the most likely one to disappear in fourth.
Yeah, I think it's a possibility. I think it would be unfortunate because I think they have a really I am obviously a gamer first, fluff guy fifth or whatever. I don't
Mm.
but they have some of the most interesting fluff
Mm.
within the world of Panathor, Mantica, whatever. It's like the League of Rordia is interesting. It has
Yeah.
like an actual background. It's been fleshed out. So I think it would be a real disservice for them to do that. Just get rid of Kingdoms of Men or something. I
Yeah,
think.
it's so interesting, isn't it? Like that, because Kingdoms of Men gets all those people that might have a historical army or
Hmm.
something and bring it in. When you have something that's generic and not necessarily tied to fluff,
Yeah.
people think that they can do whatever they want with it. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, it'll be interesting because I do think there will be a culling in fourth. Like Mantic needs to move towards their
Yeah.
own IP only.
It's
Um,
it's going to be
yeah.
interesting because yeah, there what do you have 28 armies now, which I think we all agree that 26 was probably too much. So,
Mm,
but I think at the same time they currently are all the best, the most unique, across the board.
Yeah, and well, I mean, on the counter side to my argument, I guess, is that um, because they've got the halflings now,
Yeah,
they rewrite them as the theme of the halfling list. So might get slightly less interesting.
yeah,
But like there's an argument there that like theme armies shouldn't be a problem for Mantic if the core is a Mantic IP army.
yeah.
Yeah.
Or yeah,
So
I think they could just restructure as opposed to a very broad army structure. You could have a narrower structure with more branches.
mm, yeah, yeah. I think it would be sensible for them to. I I don't think a lot of armies are a problem as long
No,
as the core is Mantic.
yeah, like you
Yeah.
could have, the orcs, the rift or rift and rift forged orcs, right? Or
Mm,
you can flip it, right,
mm.
and make it, and then you could have like rift forged orcs and tribal orcs or whatever you want to call it, and then
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, totally. I think yeah, I don't think that would be a bad way to move. I mean, essentially, we saw that with third edition, didn't we? We saw
hmm
the theme lists basically all become some of them crappy, but a version of what Mantic do provide.
yes,
Green Lady and Brother Mark
hmm
changed to that.
yeah,
From the
absolutely,
Brotherhood. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So I don't think rodeo will necessarily go away. I think they might be different, and
Mm,
I think if what has happened so far in third is any indication, like I think they're just going to make things the armies more distinct, which I
mm.
think they're quite successful. They have been successful at the last couple of years.
Which would be the big argument for letting Kingdoms of Men go.
Yes,
Mm,
but then there's the Kingdoms of Men. They have the Beast Cav now, and then all sorts of stuff. So they could just roll those two armies together and
mm,
just have it like you could have, because there's been talk about like if you have this character you can do this in the army kind of thing, or you could to make kind of like mini theme options. They're not
mm,
quite like an actual theme list, but just
mm,
I'm with you, Jeff. um Rodeo is
mm,
probably one of my favorites too, so I'm all for keeping them, but we'll see what happens over the next 2 years.
mm. Yeah, well, that leaves us with Kingdoms of Men.
Yes,
So, I mean, they probably better than all the others play the trash game better.
yeah, yeah, they have militia, fanatics. I think those are the two.
Lots of artillery
Lots of
options.
artillery options. Pegasus heroes, Pegasus generals.
Mm,
Generals on winged beasts are actually one of the best value mini
mm,
monsters, flying monsters in the game, because you can
yep,
actually have CS, like they have CS2 TC1, so you're getting like CS3 7 CS3 attacks on the charge, which is
for sub 200 points, I
yeah
think.
190 points or something like that.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah,
And then
so they're
but
dangerous enough to control board space, aren't they?
yes,
Like no one will want to go into their space, but then you can also spend your time getting them around behind.
yeah, and
You
if
know.
you take three like some like Sam Nordberg does, and you just charge all three into something. You just spend a couple turns positioning them so you can't get out of, you know, you
Mm,
can't get out of someone's, can't get your flank out of one of their arcs, and then boom, they pounce.
mm,
But then, yeah, so you have not only three good war engines, you have six good long range war engines
mm,
available to you, which I think is too many, but I think four or five definitely skews things if you want to play it that way and without messing up the rest of your list.
mm,
And then they kind of just have like shitty, cheaper versions of everything else. Like knights are like 14, 16,
mm,
TC2, headstrong. But they're still in 195 points, so they're cheaper than everyone else's knights. And they're still
mm.
defense 5, and they're still headstrong, right? So
I agree, Paige. I mean, I think that's their biggest weakness. But I
yeah,
also think on paper, you look at the list and you go, with all those drops, they
yeah,
really should work,
they should.
but they don't. Somehow,
It's
I
tricky. I
just
know
don't get it.
there's
Yeah.
that one guy in Spain or Argentina, Ezekiel. He likes to run like 5 or 6 like fanatic regiments or foot guard
Mm,
regiments. Like it definitely is a style that can work if you get really practice at it.
mm,
Um, but yeah, Paige mentioned like the new Clash of Kings unit, like Beast Cav. They're terrible. Like I really was excited for a second, and then I like
mm,
look and I'm like, they're way overcosted for what they do, or and like
mm,
under abilitied. Like
mm,
there's just no reason to take them. It's really
mm.
sad. Like there's just nothing there.
Yeah, I think they're over. Yeah, I kind of agree. I didn't mind them at first look, but I just think they don't do quite enough.
Yeah. Well,
Um,
men are just
yeah,
kind of like slightly expensive albino goblins, like
yeah,
without the fancy tricks. I'm like, I
yeah,
feel like Mantic, they give all the fancy tricks to goblins, like just
mm,
unnecessarily to the
mm,
point of like absurdity. And then you look at Kingdoms of Men, like humans are kind of like they should have that ingenuity too, but from like a less like destructive perspective. Maybe I feel like
mm,
there should that would be an interesting take on things. Just a few more, I think, again, fantasy Warhammer fantasy background, so like that's a little too much like maybe Empire whiz bang, like
mm.
Da Vinci
Yeah,
style stuff. But like I don't know, I feel like they do trash, but like goblins do trash with like gadgets, or like Night Stalkers do trash with monsters. Rats do trash with more trash and more monsters in shooting, right?
yeah. I think
So
Kingdoms of Men do trash shooting. Probably
yeah,
their best
you could
build.
do trash,
Yeah,
and yeah, because bowmen aren't terrible.
no,
They're pretty good for their points, and then like
yeah,
4 or 5 war engines, but
yeah. But
it's
no one wants to play that. Do you know what I mean?
yeah, it's a boring
Probably,
style.
yeah. Only Adam Padley wants to play that. Yeah,
Yeah, Jason Britt, he plays a good, he plays that style with like a couple hordes of bowmen, 4 or 5 war engines, and it's effective.
mm.
Maybe I'm going to see if we can get him on for the Kingdoms of Men review when it happens next year.
Yeah. Well, if it's next year, you never know.
Yeah,
Maybe we'll have fourth, and they'll be dead.
yeah,
No, we won't have fourth that quickly. But
yeah,
yeah. All right. Well, why don't we wind it up? We managed to
yeah.
eke that out with just the two most handsome hosts. You the
Hey,
most handsome, of course, because you won the title, and me
yes,
second most. Yep.
you're the best dressed.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I try. Yep. Well, thanks for tuning, and joining in.
Yes.
Those of you that have been watching or might watch back later. Thank you, Alex, and we'll sign off now. Until next time, keep
Adios.
countercharging.